Discover the shocking truth, break free from addiction with biblical secrets now. The town of Millfield had its skeletons, but nothing could prepare the residents for the spine-chilling tale that was about to unfold. Doug Miller, the most unlikely of heroes, found himself in a battle more surreal than any horror film he had ever witnessed. The whispers began when an ancient-looking tome surfaced at the local thrift shop, draped in an air of mystery and dust. It called to him, its spine cracked, pages yellowed, and filled with cryptic signs. When Doug cracked it open, he felt a shiver run down his spine, the kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand to attention. Within its pages lay terrifying accounts of people who faced terrifying addictions that snared them in a vice-like grip, dragging them into dark abysses filled with despair. Just as he thought he could brush it off, he discovered something shocking: an entire chapter devoted to breaking these chains with secret biblical teachings. The words swirled in his mind, enticing and terrifying him all at once. Could this really save lives? Or was it a dangerous trap, he wondered, his heart pounding in his chest. Yet, as night fell, strange things began to happen around him. He heard furious footsteps echoing outside his window, scraping sounds against the ground, as if something or someone was desperate to break through. The shadows seemed longer, curling in on themselves with an unnatural hunger. Murmurs filled the air, soft whispers trickling through the alleys, spreading like wildfire. "Have you seen Doug? He is lost to the pages, locked in a battle that no one can see." Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Doug delved deeper, caught between disbelief and awe, a shadow slipped past him, quick, silent, and horrific. The outline took shape, revealing a face twisted in the throes of despair. It was a figure from the pages, eyes gleaming like shards of glass, emanating a darkness that was almost palpable. What was happening? Doug knew he had to uncover the secrets buried within those pages, but there was a growing realization creeping in, a pulse of dread that whispered, what if he was never meant to? And if he didn't break free, was he destined to become just another cautionary tale, lost within the very horror he sought to conquer? The questions burned in his mind, time slipping away like grains of sand through fingers. What secrets awaited him amidst the pages, and would he escape before it was too late? Doug's heart raced as that twisted face merged with the shadow, a swirling mass of despair and urgency. The ancient tome, now lying open on the table, seemed to hum with a strange energy, drawing him in deeper. He felt an unyielding pull, as if the words within those pages were alive, reaching out for him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, each breath caught in the throbbing tension of the air around him. His surroundings blurred into an abyss of panic. Cracks in the walls whispered secrets while distorted laughter echoed in the recesses of his mind. Doug grasped the edge of the table, knuckles white, as a chill crept down his spine. The figure lingered just beyond the edge of his vision, taunting him, waiting for him to succumb to the dark allure that throbbed with every heartbeat. "What do you want?" he shouted into the suffocating darkness. Silence swallowed his words. He felt ridiculous, shouting at shadows, yet he didn't have any answers to cling to. The weight of the tome pressed heavily against his chest, like an anchor pulling him further into despair. Then he remembered the chapter, the supposed biblical secrets. Were they really hidden within? Could they be the key to his escape? He pored over the pages, frantic for illumination. Words danced before him, discipline, faith, community, but oddly, they were interspersed with cryptic warnings. "Beware the cost of knowledge," one line read. A pit of dread settled in his stomach. What could that even mean? The room was filled with sounds, now scratching and scraping, growing steadily closer. Shadows moved in the corners of his eyes, fluttering and playing tricks on his mind. Doug squeezed his eyes shut, heart hammering, willing the sounds to vanish, wishing for a heart-stopping moment of clarity. When he opened his eyes, the figure stood closer, its face revealing a hollowed smile twisted by addiction. "You can save us," it hissed. The words crawled into his ears, slimy and heavy. Doug shook his head, fear constricting his throat. I can't save anyone. I barely know how to save myself. The figure's gaze burned into him, understanding his vulnerabilities, his weaknesses. You already know the truth, it whispered. You felt it, the power within you. You just need to embrace it. With a sudden resolve, Doug threw the book across the room. The moment it hit the wall, a crack reverberated through the space, followed by an ear-splitting silence. Then he heard it, the rustle of pages flipping open, driven by an unseen force. He turned to see the ancient tome glowing with a brilliant light, illuminating the darkness that had consumed him. Could it be? Was the book revealing its secrets to him? As he hesitantly approached, shadows began swirling around his feet, tugging and pulling, wrapping him in an icy grip. Let them feed on your faith. The figure screamed in delirium, its face contorting with rage. Doug paused, heart racing, wondering what would come next. He reached out toward the radiant light emanating from the book. It beckoned him, promising salvation, but at what cost? The room began to pulse with energy, a crescendo that made the walls vibrate. Will you take the risk? The hollow voice echoed, slicing through the silence. As Doug stood on the precipice of revelation, a surge of adrenaline coursed through him. How far was he willing to go? Would he step into the light and discover the salvation he sought, or become yet another tortured soul bound by the darkness? The choice loomed, and with it, the question hung heavily in the air: who, or what, would he become if he surrendered to the truth? Doug's hand hovered over the book, trembling with anticipation. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat, fierce and wild, drawing him closer yet filling him with dread. He felt the shadows wrap tighter around him, cold tendrils squeezing his limbs as if trying to anchor him in this moment. Embrace it. The hollow voice crooned, echoing all around him. You have the strength. You can save them all. But save them? How could he save anyone when he barely understood his own demons? Terror spiraled in his gut, tightening until he thought he might choke. The tome's light shone brighter, and his pulse quickened. He could feel the depth of knowledge hidden within its pages. Was it a way out, or a portal deeper into hell? He remembered the warnings littered throughout the text. Hadn't they warned of the cost? Drawing a deep breath, Doug placed his palm on the cover. It felt warm, almost alive. The moment his skin met the faded leather, a jolt surged through him. Images flashed before his eyes, swirling clouds of chaos, figures in dark corners, and glimmers of hope like shining stars amid the storm. Take the step, Doug. The figure lunged forward, its breath rancid and desperate. Let it in. He wavered, heart thrumming like a drum, splitting the silence as the shadows threatened to swallow him whole. Should he risk it? What truths would the book unveil? What weight would he have to bear? In that moment of indecision, the flames ignited around the figure, shadows swirling into a tempest as it screamed his name. You're too weak. You'll never break free. Panic surged through him. Doug closed his eyes, nearly backing away, but he felt the light beckon him once more, fierce and unwavering. It was then he realized weakness only lived in fear. He was stronger than the darkness, he had to be. With a determined shout, he flung his arms forward, grasping the tome. A surge of heat erupted around him, the light wrapping him in a cocoon of brilliance. Silence folded in, the shadows receding just enough to grant him a breath. In that heartbeat, he felt a frail flicker of understanding surge within him. The biblical truths that had been twisted in his mind began to align, clarity spilling into him like rain after a long drought. Discipline, faith, community, they weren't just words, they were his anchors, his lifeline. Yet, the figure writhed in agony, its cries shrill and haunting. You can't escape. It screeched, gnarled fingers clawing at the air. You have no idea what you're unleashing. A swell of energy pulsed from the book, and images flashed again, visions of those he cared for, friends lost to addiction, each face a reminder of time slipping away. Would he transform, or forever be shackled in the ruins of weakness? He opened his eyes, the light engulfing him. The further he reached into the tome, the stronger he felt, battling not just shadows, but the fears buried deep in his heart. What if he could harness this power? What if he could change the narrative for him and those around him? Will you let your past betray you, or will you fight? The figure's voice twisted with rage and desperation. Doug's resolve solidified. He wouldn't let the shadows consume him or the people he loved. With every ounce of willpower, he recited the words from the tome. As he spoke, the air thickened with energy. The room quaked, shadows dissipated, and echoes of laughter morphed into something else, voices of hope. But then, with one final roar, the figure lunged, trying to reclaim Doug's sanity. "You don't know the truth, Doug. You will regret this." As the room cracked like fragile glass, the light surged once more. He felt everything shift. Would this be the moment he seized freedom, or would the darkness clamp down tighter than ever? With one last glance at the figure, now a swirling vortex of despair, Doug braced himself for the unknown. And in that moment, everything teetered at the edge. What flicker of light awaited him on the other side? The burst of light collapsed around Doug, swallowing the room whole. Just as darkness threatened to close in again, a sudden clarity exploded in his mind. The world around him flickered like a bad signal, choppy images stuttering into focus. He saw himself standing on the edge of a cliff, the abyss below calling, and somehow, yet again, the chilling whisper echoed in his ears. "Unleash it, Doug. You harbor that power. It's in your blood." Was it really power? Or just an elaborate trick of the mind, a cruel mirage promised by desperation? He clenched his fists, the warmth of the tome pulsing like a beacon. The shadows raised their frigid hands, taut, desperate to ensnare him once more. But something in him surged a fight or flight instinct, raw and primal. "No!" he shouted, the word a fierce declaration against the oppressive darkness. Heat radiated from the book, images swirling his mother's face, etched in worry, his brother's bewildered eyes dulled by addiction. The stakes tightened around his heart. They were counting on him, each decision a strand weaving together a lifeline. The vortex of despair seemed to slow. The grotesque figure fought against the throbbing light, stretching its bony fingers, clawing, but it was weakening. "Don't you see?" it howled, its voice diluted by fear. "You hurt them. You can't save them from what you can't save yourself from." Those words hit Doug like an ice-cold wave crashing over him. His throat constricted, the burden of truth weighing heavy. If he failed, if the darkness consumed him, what would happen to them? "No," he repeated, and this time, it was stronger. It wasn't just rebellion, it was a declaration of self. "You're wrong. I can be more than these wounds." As he spoke, he felt the power in the words, every syllable igniting a fierce light within him. The room shuddered, colors swirling as memories swam into sight, laughter with friends, long-forgotten days of joy, reminders of hope. They fought against the shadows, summoning strength from shared grief and triumph. Yet, the figure loomed larger, its eyes like molten charcoal, filled with a fury that threatened to ignite the shattered remnants of the room. "You can't escape this power. It will destroy you. It will destroy them." Lightning coursed through his veins, and Doug felt a surge of indignation rise from the depths of his spirit. "No. You're just a shadow of what I used to be. I will not be your puppet anymore." With that conviction, he slammed the book closed, forcing the light to erupt forth, enveloping him in a cocoon of divine clarity. And for an instant, everything shifted, the shadows recoiling, the figure's malignance wavering before him. But even as hope flooded his being, the ground beneath him tremored dangerously. Could he truly hold everything together? Could he fight against something that seemed so resolute, so deeply entwined with his very soul? "What will you do, Doug? Will you risk it all?" The echo of the figure lingered, merging with the bright light that engulfed him, creating a wall of fierce combat between his past and the future he yearned for. Doug took a deep breath, feeling the grounding reality of his pulse and connection to life around him. The way forward was obscured, dangerous, yet it was the only path worth confronting. The chaotic pulse of his heartbeat thrummed in tandem with the vibrations of the room around him, and as the light threatened to engulf everything, one question loomed: would he harness this raw energy and rise above his demons, or would he surrender his fate to the shadows that beckoned, ready to reclaim their lost puppet? Everything hung in perfect balance, teetering on an edge he hadn't anticipated. The next move would define him. What consequence awaited him if he dared to leap? The cacophony of whispers swirled like a cyclone around Doug, each sound both familiar and terrifying. The ground he stood on shifted beneath his feet, a jagged reminder of his past decisions. Cracks spider-webbed across the rocky surface, dark chasms echoing the torment that lurked within him: addiction, shame, fear. He felt them grip him like a vice, urging him to succumb. "No!" he roared, defiance bubbling to the surface. The brightness from the tome grew, glimmers of hope pushing against the shadows like the sun at dawn. The darkness hissed, slinking back with uncharacteristic fear, as if Doug's will had become a blade slicing through the grip of despair. But how long could that last? With each beat of his heart, Doug felt the weight of the choices before him. His mind flashed to his brother the way he had looked last week, lost in the haze of another high, the same hollow eyes that once sparkled with laughter and mischief. If he failed now, think of them. A voice deep within him urged. It wasn't just his brother. It was his mother, his friends, everyone who had been affected by his struggles, and now, by his resolve. The grotesque figure loomed larger, threatening to swallow Doug in one monstrous gulp. "You're only delaying the inevitable, Doug," it taunted, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. "That power will consume you. You know it will." "I know I can't stand down," Doug screamed back, his rage igniting a fire within him. "I will fight. I refuse to be chained by this." Pushing against the crushing despair, he opened the book once more. This time, the pages turned rapidly, swirling with energy, the illustrations dancing under his fingertips. Suddenly, there it was, an image of a light, shimmering with extravagant brilliance. This was the secret he had sought, a method to harness his pain and transform it into a shield. "Now, Doug. Use the power," the whispers urged, growing in desperation as he stepped forward, heart pounding. He forced himself to focus, channeling the flood of emotion coursing through him into that picture of light. The shadows recoiled further. He felt the temperature rise, a warm embrace washing over him. Doug could no longer discern where the noise ended and his thoughts began. It was overwhelming, yet thrilling. "Hold that thought, let it guide you," echoed in his mind, vibrant with urgency. "This is your moment. Breathe in. Breathe out." He grounded himself again, the visions of his loved ones painted vividly in his memory. And then, with one swift movement, he thrust his hands forward, pushing the light outward like a shockwave. The darkness shrieked, seeming to part like waves crashing against a sturdy ship. Hope surged and clawed its way up through his chest, filling the void created by years of pain, yet it wasn't enough. The shadows pressed back insistently, clawing at his edges, eager to drag him down. Doug's heart raced, he felt the precarious balance of light and dark within him strain. They whispered a chorus of confusion and insistence, threatening to suffocate his resolve. "You don't really think you can win?" In that moment, he remembered his mother's eyes, his brother's laughter, everything that mattered. "I can't do this alone," he shouted, the pure strength of his need floating through him like smoke. "But I won't do it for them either. I fight for me." Suddenly, the tome pulsed violently in his hands, each word straining with untapped potential. The figure shrieked again, but this time, there was panic in its voice. Doug couldn't look away from the radiant light exploding forth from the focal point of his heart. It was a bright beacon against a sky-blackened backdrop. Then it happened. An eruption of energy surged from his fingertips, illuminating the room like the brightest star in the darkest night. But just as victory loomed within grasp, he heard a crack, more bone-chilling than the shadows and whispers. The ground quaked alarmingly and he fought to maintain balance. His triumph was taunted by a new vibration of dread in the air. "My puppets can't be severed without consequences, Doug." The voice twisted into the words, echoing against the walls, boasting about what awaited him if he crossed this line. "You will pay." Doug's resolve faltered for just a breath, the obscured consequences clawing at him. He had stirred something ancient, powerful. The blinding light danced, the shadows writhed, and Doug stared into the abyss of what his new powers might unleash. Was he truly prepared to face the truth of his actions? What shadows would he have to confront next? The eruption of energy sent a swirling cascade of light dancing around Doug, illuminating the darkness like fireworks in the night sky. But the ground beneath him shuddered with a malevolent force, a reminder that every light casts its shadow. The whispers spiraled into chaos, a frantic symphony of self-doubt and warning that gnawed at the edges of his mind. You think this is power? You're just a puppet, Doug. The monstrous figure cackled, its voice slithering against his resolve. You can't escape what you are. Doug gritted his teeth, determination flaring like a flame in his chest. The light, or was it hope, continued to beam from his palms, warm and inviting, coursing through him in shimmering waves. He needed to harness it, bottle the flickering essence of his strength before the darkness consumed it entirely. Focus! He urged himself, grounding the tremble in his limbs. He couldn't let the cacophony of voices drown out his will. Images flashed through his mind: his brother, helpless and lost in another bout of substance abuse. The guilt coiled inside him like a nagging serpent. Every minute he hesitated, he feared he'd fail him again. Stop! Doug bellowed to the shadows, desperation amplifying his voice. I'm more than what you made me. At that moment, a blinding burst of energy erupted from within him, tearing through the encroaching gloom as if it were paper. The grotesque figure shrieked, its form twisting in agony. Doug felt powerful, electric, as the shadows recoiled. It was working. Yet as the shrieks faded, so did the light, dwindling like a flame starved for air. The ground beneath him jolted violently, rock cracking in response to an unseen force. Doug stumbled, panic rising in his throat. Was this what he had unleashed? Nothing comes without a price, Doug, the voice echoed, darker now, reverberating through the very marrow of his bones. Are you ready to pay? His heart raced. The realization hit him like a freight train. He had opened a door to something ancient and powerful, but what lay on the other side wasn't simply light, it came with darkness, consequences he had yet to truly fathom. Did he have what it took to fight both? Around him, the shadows began to morph into figures, silhouettes of those he loved. Was it their pain that he had brought forth? Their hurt pulled at him, thin threads woven into the fabric of his spirit. Mom? He whispered, recognizing her blend of worry and disappointment. I'm trying, but a laugh bitter and twisted choked him. You see, Doug? They won't leave you. Not even if you want them to. They are your burden now. His gut twisted like a knot. They were right, he had to face this truth. Doug could not wish them away, nor could he fight them if he didn't first confront his own reckoning. Suddenly, an electric shock coursed through Doug's veins, making every hair stand on end. The tome in his hands flared anew, illuminating a path before him, one lined with choices yet to be made. It pulsed with potential, and before he could second-guess himself, he pressed forward once more. The darkness surged around him, threatening to engulf him. Yet with clarity, Doug took a breath. I won't let you take me down. With a roar that echoed through the crumbling ground, Doug channeled all his turmoil, his love, his desire for freedom into one fierce beam of light. It surged outward, pushing against the serpentine shadows clawing at him. A wave of brilliance erupted against the dark, illuminating not just his surroundings, but the truth he had buried inside. He could seep light into the darkness. But was it enough? Would this moment be fleeting? As the shadows writhed, Doug felt the last vestiges of his strength waning. The price of his choice loomed before him, promising pain not just to himself, but to those he cherished most. Could he stand strong in the face of imminent loss? Could he reclaim himself, or would the darkness return with a vengeance? His breath caught in his throat, and Doug realized with sudden clarity, the deeper the darkness, the brighter the light must shine. But in this fragile moment, the ground began to crack once more, the whispers of the shadows rising into a relentless crescendo. The stakes had never been higher. What awaited him in the depths of his choice? Would he unleash a new darkness, or could he finally break free? The ground split like a canyon, jagged rocks protruding from the chaos. Doug shrieked, a primal sound fueled by fear and determination. Above him, a storm of shadows loomed, swirling, streaking towards him with an insatiable hunger. He could feel their icy breath on his skin, teasing at the edges of his sanity. No! He yelled, voice piercing through the cacophony. Desperation surged within him, igniting a fire deeper than fear. He summoned the light, feeling it pulse wildly in his chest, a heartbeat of courage against overwhelming darkness. The light fought back, clashing with the shadows, creating a shimmering barrier that flickered like a candle in the wind. "You think that's enough, Doug?" The monstrous figure sneered, reforming within the cloud of darkness. It towered over him, its eyes like burning coals. "You've only begun to unravel the truth about yourself." The shadows coiled around him, grasping at his limbs like vices, constricting the hope he had fought to manifest. Doug clenched his eyes shut, shaking his head, battling against the tides of despair. "No, I won't believe you," he gasped. "I'm not who you say I am." As if mocking him, the shadows shifted into familiar faces: his brother, pale and trembling, his mother, eyes filled with unspoken sorrows, all those he had lost to their own demons. Weaving through the darkness, their whispers encircled him with memories, regret, shame, moments he wished he could rewrite. "Feel their pain, Doug. It's yours forever," another voice taunted, darker than before. His heart raced, the tightening grip of sorrow settling over him like an iron cloak. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his truth. "But I can change," he shouted, defiance filling every word. "I will break this cycle." The tome surged in his grasp, glowing with a brightness that pushed against the darkness. It felt like a lifeline, stabilizing him amidst the tumult. He opened his eyes, and the words of the ancient text poured out, flooding the air like an intoxicating elixir. "Let the light guide me," Doug cried, each syllable infused with power. A stream of brilliant energy surged from the pages, curling into tendrils of sunlight that illuminated the dark shadows. His surroundings erupted in a dazzling display, washing over him, carrying the faces of his past in its wake. The shadows shrieked, their forms shriveling against the vibrant onslaught, howling like trapped beasts fighting against their own destruction. But even as the shadows melted away, he sensed a deeper darkness lingering just outside his reach. It pulsed beneath the cracks of the earth, a heartbeat matching his own, a promise of pain tethered to a truth he still had to uncover. "Understand this, Doug," the figure twisted in the fading gloom, voice dripping with venom. "You cannot escape your past. It will always find a way back to you." With each word, the ground trembled again, the air thickening with tension. Doug felt panic rise, the creeping realization that every moment of light might usher in greater darkness. Was his fight truly in vain? Suddenly, a shroud of despair washed over him, heavy and suffocating. His light flickered, stress stealing its glow. The shadows, though weakened, lurked. Were they merely waiting for a moment of vulnerability? Did resilience even have a limit? He steadied himself, digging deep for the strength he had found. He focused on every flicker of hope, every breath that reminded him of his purpose. "I am not a prisoner," he declared, voice unwavering. "I will not be bound." But even as he fought, the ground-swallowed cracks grew wider, threatening to engulf him whole. Out of desperation, Doug pushed through his burden, thrusting the tome skyward, determined to draw from its depths. Just as the darkness threatened to consume everything within reach, a blinding beam of light erupted, carving through the shadows with the intensity of a sun rising at dawn. "Now is your moment, Doug. Will you seize it?" The monstrous voice echoed teasingly, vibrating with malice. What new destruction awaited if he failed again? Could he hold his ground, or would he pay the ultimate price for this moment of defiance? The abyss stared back, and Doug stood at its edge, heart pounding, knowing that every choice carried weight and consequences. The blinding light surged through the chaos, illuminating every crevice of the ground where shadows writhed. Doug felt the warmth seep into him, entwining with the remnants of his fear. He breathed deep, the air thick with anger and uncertainty. The tome felt like an extension of himself, its ancient words alive and thrumming. "Step back, darkness!" he bellowed, and with the force of his anger, he slammed the book back to the ground, unleashing another shockwave of energy. The shadows lunged forward, clawing hungrily at his light, but the brilliance exploded outward, sending them spiraling back into the void. But the monstrous figure loomed closer, its voice a gravelly growl. "You can't hide behind light forever, Doug. The truth will claw its way back to you." Doug's heart raced as he saw glimpses of his past within the figure, every mistake, every regret enshrined in its ghastly visage. He felt the world shift beneath him, reality teetered. Each beat of his heart echoed the doubts within. "What if it's right?" he thought. "What if I'm just a puppet of my past?" Suddenly, the ground underfoot cracked violently, sweeping him to the edge of a yawning abyss. Exhaustion clawed at his limbs, each second promising to tear him away from the light he fought to sustain. Yet he glimpsed a flicker of something behind the gnawing darkness, a warmth, a glimmer of innocent joy. It was a memory of his brother, laughter shared over a summer barbecue. No! He shouted as if pulling on the thread of that memory could overwrite the shadows. Gripping the tome tighter, he poured every ounce of courage into the words. You don't get to take them away from me. The light ignited once more, pulsing violently, and Doug blasted it towards the figure. Shadow screamed, a cacophony of rage. But the figure didn't waver. Instead, it began to reshape itself, morphing into something even more grotesque. A mirror image, a twisted version of Doug himself, stared back, broken and hollow. Do you see it? This is the real you. It boomed, the voice echoing like a sinister choir. You're not a hero. You're a coward. You've run from this your whole life. Panic rose within him, overwhelming, suffocating. No! He gasped, I am not that. But the words felt feeble, a breath against a tempest. In that moment, Doug knew he couldn't fight with mere light or anger. He needed clarity. He took a deep breath, letting the warmth wash over him. I'm not a coward, he whispered. I am stronger than my past. I accept it. The shadows hesitated, rippling with uncertainty. Doug felt a riptide of energy gathering in him, feeding off his acceptance. It wasn't just defiance, it was transformation. Look closely, Doug, the figure coiled tighter. You'll never change. You're defined by what you've lost. But the idea felt weak. Doug, grounding himself, visualized every moment he had risen above small victories, the way he had fought for his brother, his mother, even himself. Each memory became a thread, weaving into a tapestry of strength. The shadow shrieked, rising in one last surge, desperate, clawing at his resolve. Doug squared his shoulders, the light around him intensifying, pulsating like a heartbeat. No more running! He roared, thrusting the tome forward with every scrap of his will. The light exploded outward, bathing everything in a golden glow. As the shadows disintegrated, a deep rumble surged through the earth. But something remained, an echo of a deeper darkness, a truth yet to unfold beneath the surface. The ground trembled violently, threatening to swallow him whole. Doug stumbled back, his heart racing as fissures snaked through the earth ahead of him. Would this battle end in victory, or would something worse lie beneath? With uncertainty clawing at his throat, Doug gazed into the darkening depths, feeling a pull. What lay hidden? What horrid truth was waiting to be uncovered? The weight of unanswered questions loomed heavy as shadows flickered back to life, whispering his name. What would he find if he dared to leap into the unknown? As Doug stared into the growing chasm, something deep inside him stirred, a primal instinct, a desperate urge to avoid what awaited in the darkness. The shadows wriggled and danced at the edges, their whispers growing louder, wrapping around him like a forgotten lullaby twisted into a nightmare. Doug, they called him, their voices a chilling symphony that echoed through the air, each note laced with memories he wished to forget. He stumbled back a step, then another, feebly holding up the tome as if it could shield him from what lay ahead. Confusion spiked with fear, battling for dominance. What lay beneath could either destroy him or liberate him. His pulse quickened. Whatever truth you're hiding, I'm coming for you. He shouted into the darkness, surprising himself with the fervor in his voice. It was a declaration, one he needed to believe. With a deep breath, Doug stepped closer to the edge. The void seemed to ripple and pulse, like a living organism breathing beneath his very feet. Each heavy rumble reverberated through him, and within it, he caught echoes of laughter, echoing triumphantly. Stop! Don't do it! A small voice inside him screamed. How stupid could he be? But then he remembered the darkness that had haunted him, the regrets that lived like ghosts in his mind. If he was going to be free, he had to confront them. As if the universe sensed his resolve, the earth began to crack wider, the chasm beckoning with ominous beauty. A faint glow flickered deep within, pulsating slowly like a heartbeat. Doug felt it pulling him closer, luring him closer to the edge. Suddenly, a form shot up from the depths. A shadowy silhouette materialized, taking shape. It was a childless figure. It wasn't just any child, it was his brother, Jacob. He stood there, eyes wide open, a brilliant smile lighting up his face, a stark contrast to the darkness swirling behind him. "Doug! Help me!" The cry ripped through Doug's heart like a jagged knife, intense and raw. Hot tears streamed down his face, triggered by memories of carefree summers and gentle words. "No! I will save you!" Doug erupted, grasping the tome tightly again as he felt his heart tear into a mix of love and terror. The chasm groaned, wrestling with his uncertainty. The darkness began to thicken, contorting around Jacob's figure, swirling dangerously. It was a trap, Doug knew. It was his guilt trying to draw him in, to enslave him again. Hesitation threatened to overwhelm him, but he recalled the warmth that he had embraced just moments earlier, the acceptance of his past. He lifted his chin. "I am not afraid. Stay strong, Jacob. I'll get you out." With another surge of courage, he launched himself forward, diving into the abyss. The world around him dissolved into swirling chaos, colors bled together like watercolors on a canvas. The wind roared in his ears, but Doug focused on the glow of his brother's figure, pushing through the suffocating thick darkness that clawed at him, threatening to drag him down. As he reached out for Jacob, the silhouette shifted, contorting grotesquely back into the shadowy figure that had haunted him earlier. Doug's heart sank. "No! You're not real. I am your weakness." It hissed, seeping into his mind, feeding on the fear now spilling from his heart. The laughter faded, replaced by echoes of failure and loss. "You will never escape," it screamed, the shadows tightening around him. But Doug, feeling that warmth rise again, roared back, "You don't control me anymore." The energy erupted from within, a blast of light illuminating the dark. The shadow loomed closer, its face twisted in rage as Doug plunged deeper into the void. Time stood still as light and darkness clashed violently, provoking a storm of emotions inside him. Would the truth bury him or set him free? Would he find Jacob or lose himself forever? Amidst the chaos, a thought crashed through. The truth he sought lay somewhere hidden, waiting for him to uncover it. But as he plunged further, the darkness stirred again, whispering promises of despair. What awaited him in the unknown? Would his brother become the master of his salvation or his final undoing? The swirling shadows urged him deeper, and once again, he found himself questioning, could he bear the weight of this truth? As Doug spiraled through the darkness, the chasm tightened its grip on him, echoing the fears he had long buried. He was caught between the swirling shadows and the faint glow of his brother's image. In every doubt whispered by the darkness, he felt a piece of his spirit trembling. "You can't escape," it taunted, "this is where your story ends." But deep inside him burned a flicker of resolve. He could hear Jacob's laughter in the depths of despair, reminding him of childhood afternoons filled with sunshine, splash fights in the creek, the bond they had shared. "You're right. I can't escape," Doug whispered, his voice breaking. "But I can face you." Each breath he took amplified the warmth building within him, a wild and fierce power growing stronger as he faced the figure that represented everything he feared. "Is that all you've got?" Doug shouted boldly into the swirling void. The shadow recoiled, eyes narrowing, its voice shrill. "You're nothing without your pain." "No!" Doug shouted defiantly, digging deep into the courage he barely recognized within himself. "I am everything with it. My past may hurt me, but it doesn't define me." His voice rang out, echoing through the abyss, and with it, he felt the light surge back to life, filling every crack and cranny in the darkness, pushing against the weight that threatened to crush him. Suddenly, the tome in his hand blazed with brilliance, illuminating everything around him like the first rays of dawn breaking through the night. He felt it, an electric pulse of unity with the truth he had almost surrendered. Realization hit him hard, the shadows around him were not just remnants of his failures, they were the ghosts of the choices he had made, dragging him down, every flicker representing sorrow, addiction, and regret. What if he turned that pain into strength? What if he could make a change right here, right now? Is that so? The shadow huffed, lunging closer, twisted features challenging him. "Maybe you'll finally learn the truth." "I already know it," Doug declared, the light swelling brighter, pushing the freezing tendrils of darkness further away. It's not just about being saved, it's about saving myself first, accepting my flaws, and battling against them. He closed his eyes, anchoring himself in the power he felt surging through him. Swirls of light encased him, grip tightening as he channeled his memories, the joy of laughter, the thrill of friendship, and the warmth of family. With each thought, he recited the ancient words he'd uncovered from the tome. Discipline, faith, community. I embrace you. The light erupted in a crescendo, reflecting against the heavy shadows. The clash between light and dark created a rhythm, doubling back and forth, each thump powerful, driving home his resolve. I am strong. I will not run from you any longer. The grotesque image of the shadow twisted and writhed, clawing at the air. You think you can change destiny? You're just delaying the inevitable. But Doug saw through the lies. The dark figure was nothing more than a reflection of what he feared most: failure, loss, despair. You don't own me! He shouted with a fierce roar. I own my story. With one final surge of determination fueled by all he loved, Doug thrust the tome forward. A radiant beam of light shot from it, dispersing through the swirling darkness, chasing it away like the morning sun vanquishing night. It pushed against the shadows until they shrieked in agony, their twisted forms dissipating into nothingness. The pressure around him eased, and Doug found himself standing on solid ground. Gone were the shadows that had haunted him. Instead, he felt a weight lift from his soul. He breathed in deeply, clarity washed over him like a cleansing tide. Jacob? He whispered, his heart racing as he turned, scanning the radiant glow. A figure emerged from the light, ethereal and familiar, the spirit of his brother, free from darkness. Doug? Jacob's voice rang sweetly in Doug's ears. You finally did it. Doug stumbled forward, clutching the tome tightly, feelings swirling, the release of guilt, the acceptance of everything he feared, transforming into something pure hope. We can be free together, he urged, stepping into the embrace of the light. The warmth enveloped him, igniting everything he thought would consume him. In that embrace, Doug knew he was free. He turned to face the remnants of darkness, knowing while they would not disappear entirely, he would still confront triggers and challenges in the outside world. But armed with acceptance and support, he'd learned to carry his light forward. He took a step into the bright morning, a new chapter unfolding. There is so much more ahead, Jacob. Let us go. And as they walked, he felt the whispers of the past fade, replaced by laughter and promise, a true victory forged in acceptance and resilience. The sun rose over the horizon, lighting their path. It was time to live, to truly live, and Doug knew he wouldn't face it alone. This was his moment, a beginning born out of battles fought in darkness. Don't miss this exhilarating journey as it unfolds. You need to subscribe now to keep up with these exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help us thrive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts. What do you think will happen next? And please share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Let us build our community, because together, we can conquer even the darkest shadows.